Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome back to Bodhi Tree Buddhism Community for our second class in this third course on mindfulness meditation. And I have given today's class a little second kind of title, which is Don't Forget to Breathe. So welcome along, everyone. We're here on the second out of our 6 classes on mindfulness meditation, and those of you that joined us last week will know, and I'll just do a little refresher here, that for these 6 weeks we are looking at the idea and the teachings, the practices of mindfulness as a form of meditation. And we are looking at some early texts, some texts from Pāli, ancient language used in the Theravadan, the South Asian traditions, and also some sources from the Chinese, which we see far less of, but they are also equivalent texts from a different tradition, from Sanskrit or Prakrit, and translated into Chinese. And so we're going to look at these texts, we're going to look at these original, very early, very core teachings as they appear in scriptures. So I want to do that so that you feel that what you're learning here isn't just my ideas or some concept that I've made up, or you don't know where it comes from. And as we're of course looking at these, then we're also going to go in and spend some time to practice those teachings in the second half of the session today. So those of you that are tuning in online, I can see there's a few of you online already. Please throw a comment in the little comment section there. It's always good to see who we've got online. One thing I've been really happy about is seeing a number of regulars coming back each week. I know who you are, you know who I am, and so it's really good. It feels really encouraging, and also, we've named this group the Bodhi Tree Buddhism Community, and that's kind of what I want to build up. I want to make it a place where people can come back regularly, feel that they can get the teachings that they want to get. Okay, so, hello Elena. Hi there. How are things down in, well, not down, how are things over the other side of the Pacific? I hope you're doing well there. If anyone else is around, please make a little comment there. I see we've got a few more people online. I guess people are just tuning in. We've got Terry there. Hi, good morning. Hope you're doing well there in the Philippines. We've got people tuning in from all over. Okay, now just a comment before we begin. I know we've been plagued by all sorts of technical issues. My kind of like workstation here at the moment is getting more and more crowded as I'm adding more elements, but hopefully today's setup should be nice and stable. We're no longer on Wi-Fi. We've got a proper mic. We've got everything. Seems to be kind of like coming together well. Okay, now, so a comment there. Lots of coronavirus, but we're staying in. Well, yeah. As I think I've said maybe in the last couple of weeks, for myself at least, being here in Taiwan, I mean, it's probably one of the best places to be anywhere at the moment. And, there was a huge amount of tension and pressure, a few months ago, but it's becoming less and less of an issue here now. Of course, that's always a problem if we get a bit, kind of take it a bit too lightly. But obviously when we see the news from around the world, it's things are not, some places things are getting better, some places things are not getting better, some places it kind of got better, and now maybe it's not so much. So wherever you are out there, take care. I hope you're doing well. Remember to stay in touch with your friends and family, even if it's only like online, because in addition to all those essentials in life, our food, water, clothing, shelter, we also need that contact with others. Okay, comment there from Mika. Greetings. Good to see you, Mika. I hope you're doing well. Last week I was watching the annular eclipse in Chiayi. Okay, yeah, I saw some of your pictures there. Some great shots. Oh, and hi to your mum there, Elena. She's tuning in as well. Okay, enough of the intros. Let's get into our kind of content for today. Okay, where are we? I'm just going to have to flip over screens. Going to flip screens here. And let's pull up back to our text. So the core text that we've been looking at, and we'll probably, it's kind of our core text throughout all these classes, is this text here, the Satipatthana Sutta, the foundations of mindfulness. We talked about these words last week, the term mindfulness, sati, or in Sanskrit, smriti, and Chinese it's nian. And what that stands for, kind of this idea of like recollecting, but also putting your mind and focusing on something without being distracted, without forgetting what it is you're focusing on. We talked about then these foundations, these patana, or these kind of, sometimes they get called as like grounds of mindfulness, establishments of mindfulness, foundations of mindfulness. They're all different terms, but they come from basically the same sense. The root of that term there is sta, which is the same as the English word stand. So if you can imagine like standing, it's where you stand or you set up or you establish your mindfulness. There are 4 of them. And we're just, as we can see just very clearly or quickly in the text, there are 4 of them. The first one, maybe I can pop this into a single screen here. Okay, there are 4 of them. The first one is mindful contemplation of the body, then mindful contemplation of feelings, contemplation of the mind, and finally contemplation of, and here he's got his mind objects. The term is dhammas. And so like, how do we understand this term dhammas? We'll get to that later. We can see also like in the text here, we abide contemplating the mind. You abide contemplating feelings. So even this term abide here is related to the sense of pasthana, this foundation or this establishment. Somewhere where you if you abide somewhere, it's where you stay. You don't move around. That's where you stay. It might be, if you abide in a house, you might move through different places within the house, but you're staying inside the house. It's not outside. Once you go out the door or out the window, you're no longer abiding in the house. So that's kind of that sense there of these establishments or foundations or grounds of mindfulness. Okay, this is all kind of just a little refresher from last week. Now, what we did look at last week is we started with contemplation of the body. And while the text begins with mindfulness of breathing, I said we're going to get back to that. That's what we're going to focus on this week. But what we did look at in particular last week were the 4 postures. So standing, sitting, walking or lying, or in fact any posture that your body's in, and being mindful. You're being aware. Your mind is abiding, dwelling, staying within the body. It's not wandering off somewhere else. And in addition to the postures, we also had full awareness. So this is this really broad sense. You're in a full awareness when coming and going, when looking this way, looking that way. Looked across the road. You're aware that you're turning your head to check. Aware that you're turning your head. Then you're aware that your feet are walking, stepping out to cross the road. Putting on your clothes, taking off your clothes. Eating food, might be holding the food, taking the food, putting it in your mouth, chewing the food. All these things one is mindful and aware of. Okay, even when you're going to the bathroom, you do it mindfully, with full awareness and presence on what you're doing. So those are the 2 that we looked at last week. But this is only the start of mindfulness of the body. I mentioned very briefly, there are other things like foulness, this idea of the different parts that make up the body, the head hairs, body hairs, nails, teeth, flesh, skin, sinews, bones. So you go through and again, your mind abides, it stays within the body and it goes through part by part. These are all the bits that make up the body. This is the body. All these things come together to make the body. And we had also the 9 charnel ground contemplations, very old Indian practice, in the places where the Buddha lived. Usually, people often think, in India they cremate, they cremate the dead. Well, that's a bit of a later thing. That's an influence from Brahmanic culture that then became kind of a universal through India. But where the Buddha was at that time, it wasn't the standard practice. And so they would just take the bodies and place them out there'd be like a special area outside the town or the village, and the meditator would go there and watch the body decompose, and again contemplate the body as this impermanent thing. Ultimately this body is going to die, it's going to rot and fall apart, in order to let go of attachment to the body. It's part of the nature of the body, right? You contemplate this body dies, rots. In the end, it turns to dust. You know, right? Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. And look, my body here is going to suffer the same fate. This is a very sharp, very powerful reminder of death and impermanence. Okay, so we talked about these, but what I said we were going to look at in particular this week was mindfulness of breathing. And if we look in this text here, you see, however, that the teachings for mindfulness of breathing are really quite short, right? And how bhikkhus, so meditators, practitioners, does a meditator abide contemplating the body as a body? Here, a meditator gone to the forest or the root of a tree or an empty hut sits down, having folded his or her legs crosswise, set his or her body erect, and established mindfulness in front of him. Ever mindful, they breathe in, ever mindful, they breathe out, breathing in long, etc. And it goes through this list here. Now, in this list, in this text, it really just talks about breathing in long. And when you breathe in, it means like a long breath, like a longer, deeper breath. You know, I breathe in long. Or if you're breathing out, you know that you are breathing out. And same for a shorter breath as well. Okay, now that's what we've got here for this text. However, what I want to look at today is not just this text. I want to show you a couple of other texts as well. Now, this one's kind of freezing up a bit. Never mind. Let me see if I can switch to a different document. Okay, now I promised you all that we were going to look at some point. Oh, I'm sorry, the Adobe files are not responding very well, I'm afraid. Okay. There's kind of a bit of a freeze there. I'll just wait for that to come back and re-establish itself. Now, the main text that we were looking at last week is the Foundations of Mindfulness, and it talks about all four of them, right? Body, feelings, mind, and dhammas. But there are a couple of other mindfulness texts that are also very important texts. They kind of take maybe one of those or a part of those and just focus on that in more detail and go into quite a bit more detail for those. And that's what I kind of wanted to do today. And as I said earlier, I didn't want to just focus on English translations from the Pāli. I also wanted to show you some English translations from Chinese sources. Okay, now hopefully let's go see if our documents are kind of no longer freezing up on us here. Oh, that's maybe not quite right. Let me see what we've got here. Oh, that's not very good. Let me see what's happening here. Okay, those Adobe files for some reason are kind of freezing and sticking a little bit. Okay, not quite sure what's happening there. I should be able to get this open in a second. So many years ago I was working on a little translation project where, oh, not that one, this one here, a little translation project where I'm sorry, shouldn't be that file, it should be this one here. No, not that one. This one here. I'm very sorry about that. Are we in the right place now? I think hopefully we're in the right place here now. That I was doing some translations from these Chinese sources. Now these are parallel texts to the Pāli tradition. And there's a lot of very important material in the Chinese canon that comes from really early Indian Buddhism. Now, to cut a long story short, because Chinese Buddhism and East Asian Buddhism in general is very strongly Mahayanic in character, and these texts, these what are called Agama texts, are not Mahayana texts. So while, like 1500 years ago, these texts were translated into Chinese, to be honest, it seems as almost like no one ever read them. It really is them. It's translated, and then they're not Mahayana. Just don't bother. Just ignore them. The last maybe half a century, maybe even a century, there's been a lot more interest in these texts from the Chinese side. And by studying these texts and comparing them to the Pāli texts, we can see all sorts of very interesting things about the development of very early Buddhism and some of the different schools. Now, that's a whole other topic, but it just so happens I've got a bunch of these texts and this material that I was translating and working on for some projects, and one of those is from this text here, the Samyukta Agama. And you see it's a few years old now, and a part of this is here. Let me just scroll down and be on the next page. Part of this comes from Fascicle 29. It's a very large text, it's pretty huge, which is ānāpāna nian xiang ing, so connected with exhalation and inhalation. So ānāpāna smriti, that is mindfulness of breathing. So there's a number of these texts here, and I thought it might be interesting to kind of just have a look at something slightly different for a change. Now, there are a number of texts in this little category here. You can see this document's 45 pages long. And so we're not going to go through all of them and one by one, but all of them are somehow related. Now, the first one, let's just have a look at this first one, because this first one's really kind of interesting. It doesn't so much talk about meditation itself, the practices, but things that you need to do beforehand, you need to prepare beforehand. So let's just quickly look. Thus it was heard by me at one time when the Buddha was dwelling at Shravasti in ānāpāna Park in Jeta's Grove. There's a whole background story there. Those of you familiar with Buddhism will know all these places and who these people are. At the time, the Blessed One, so it's the Buddha, said to the monks, there are 5 qualities that are of benefit for the cultivation of mindfulness, of exhalation and inhalation. What are those 5 qualities? Okay, the first one, abiding in the disciplined restraint of the pure pratimoksha. Okay, now the pratimoksha is just basically means the precepts, the rules for the monks and the nuns. So 200 plus different traditions have different numbers, but it just basically means someone who is abiding in the disciplined restraint of the pure pratimoksha means they're following all the monastic rules without breaking even the slightest rule. Being endowed with the postures, which are the basis for practice. Generating fear with respect to even the slightest transgression, and upholding the training precepts. So these are all kind of, this is just the first point. All of these center around, they're upholding all the rules. They don't even want to make the slightest transgression. And the reason for that is they have no kind of like misgivings, like, oh, I broke a rule, and kind of like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. And when you're trying to focus on your practice, if you've got that little thought in your head, that little kind of misgiving, even if it's something pretty minor, it's going to be a distraction. It's going to sap your energy. Whereas if you've followed all the rules perfectly and find, look, I have absolutely no regrets. I haven't done anything wrong, so I can really be kind of like at ease and at peace in my heart. And then I can just totally focus on my practice. This is known as the first quality that is of benefit for the cultivation of mindfulness, of exhalation and inhalation. Okay, the second point. Being of few desires, of few tasks, and of few duties. Okay, so it just means, having few desires is another really common term we see. It means that we're easily satisfied. We're like, there's one way, the way I like to express it. I don't know if you read that cartoon Calvin and Hobbes, right? So Calvin, he's like that little kid, little boy, and Hobbes is his kind of pet tiger. So kind of like in real life, it's this little stuffed tiger toy, but in Calvin's imagination, he's like a real tiger. So it's this little boy and a little kind of pet tiger, but they have these like a lot of philosophical conversations. And one of my favorite lines from Calvin and Hobbes is Calvin saying, I think it's Calvin. Yeah, it's Calvin. He says, the secret to happiness is lowering your expectations to the point where they are already met. Now, it goes against so much of our kind of, the worldly ways, which is we set these great expectations and we work and strive and battle towards them. And he's saying, that's all just this big struggle. If you just are happy with what you have right now, it's like, this is all I need. Hey, then we can be content. That's my definition of being a few desires. Also, a few tasks and a few duties means that if we've got a lot of things that we need to be busy with, again, it's going to distract us. It means our mind is always thinking about other things, being distracted by this, what do I have to do tomorrow, what do I have to prepare for this, and so on and so forth. Whereas if we really simplify our lives, then few desires, few tasks, few duties, it's a benefit to this practice. Third point, knowing the appropriate amount of food and drink, finding the medium between excess and deficiency, not generating desirous thoughts with respect to food and drink, and being energetic in contemplation. So it kind of looks like two. The first one's about not eating too much or drinking too much, finding moderation, what you need, no more, no less. And you might think, well, being energetic in contemplation, like, what does that have to do with food? Well, it does, because if you stuff yourself, if you overeat, it makes you drowsy and sluggish. You want to have a little nap. However, if we don't, we have moderation, then we've got just the right amount of energy. I mean, if you don't eat enough as well, then you've got no energy too. So having the right amount of energy isn't like more calories equals more energy. Well, in one way it is, but in terms of the energy that we can actually apply, it's not. The fourth one, not sleeping in the first watch of the night and the last watch of the night. And again, being energetic in contemplation. Now, this is slightly more technical. In ancient India, time, a day is divided up into like daytime and nighttime, and each of those is divided up into 3 watches or 3 blocks. So you've got 6 in total. Each of these is therefore 4 hours long. So the first watch is from 6 o'clock, which is kind of like dusk, to 10 o'clock. So you don't sleep during that time. You keep meditating in the early evening. From 10 till 2 in the morning, that's the middle watch, that's when you can sleep. And then, according to these very hardcore meditators, remember, after 2, you again wake up, and before dawn, like 4 hours before dawn, you continue with your practice. Now, for most of us, I think like, that's not going to happen. 4 hours sleep, no, I'm going to wake up and then I'm going to go back to sleep, or my meditation will be so sleepy and drowsy and dozy, it's not going to be effective. But remember, these teachings were originally for practitioners who, that was their job. They did not do anything else. And when the mind gets to that level of concentration and clarity, you really don't need that amount of sleep. And mainly, it's kind of a bit of a off-topic. Well, it's not off-topic at all. A lot of the reasons why we sleep, and the deep sleep time's only a couple of hours long. And then we have this period after that, which is, that's when we have the dream sleep, right? The REM sleep period. And a lot of that is kind of like stuff, it's like nervous stuff, mental stuff that's come out during the day, building up all these tensions and emotions, and they kind of get released in the form of dreams during the night. So if during the day you don't have all that mental activity and all that emotional activity going on, you don't need that release during sleep. And if you've been on a longer retreat, maybe go on a 7-day retreat, and you really do get concentrated, you find you do not need that much sleep. You need a much, much shorter amount of sleep. Okay, I see a little comment there from Mika. Live stream image and audio quality are amazing compared to some earlier attempts. Thank you very much. Yeah, they are quite a bit better. I just hope we can keep it all stable. Okay, thanks for that. Thanks for that feedback. It's quite valuable. Okay, so that's the fourth quality. And then the fifth one, dwelling in the forest wilderness, secluded from noise and commotion. Now that reminds us, if we just skip back to, what was that earlier text we were just looking at before? Oh, which text is this? This should be, oh, is that cutting text? I'm sorry. I'm making a mess of these texts again. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. We're having more little issues here with the text. this doesn't cause us too many problems. Okay, never mind. Let's just go back and stick with this document that we've got here. But if you remember when we were looking at that earlier mindfulness text, it says, the meditator goes into the forest the text give like a couple of different lists. It might be go into a forest under a tree. It might be go into a cave. It might be go into a field. It might be go into a burial ground, like a cemetery ground. A few of these different places. And all of these in general, so there's kind of like specific places, but all of these in general are known as the forest wilderness, the aranyaka, or aranya. Sometimes might be translated as a hermitage. So in my mind, when I think of a hermitage, I still think of kind of like a little building, it's like a little wooden hut in the forest. Probably for these meditators, it wasn't even that. Just like a place somewhere quiet, away from the noise and commotion. And there were standard even definitions of how far do you need to be. In ancient texts they say, so if you can imagine, it's out in the countryside and these little villages, and villages might just be a couple of little houses, and you have to be far enough away that you can't hear the sound of the cows. So you can't hear the village noise, in other words. Now, a modern equivalent is actually harder than it would be in the past, because car sound, city sound, humans are so noisy. We create so many noisy things. Maybe electric cars are going to help us with this in the future. So the key point is somewhere secluded from noise and commotion, right? Because sound is a distraction. You concentrate on the sound, distracts us. Okay, so this is one text that kind of then gives us some little preliminaries. Let's have a look at some other texts here. The second one here is just on exhalation and inhalation. This one's just a super simple one. It just says the Buddha was at this place, and he tells the monks you should cultivate mindfulness of inhalation and exhalation. And if you cultivate that mindfulness, you can attain calmness of body and mind, applied thought and sustained thought, pacified and pure. This means you can enter into the state of jhana or dhyana. And you develop these perceptions which are factors to wisdom. Perceptions which are factors to wisdom. I'm going to see if I can cut back to this other text here now. No, it's not going to. Are we going to be able to get this text here? I don't know if it's going to let me open it. Okay, never mind. These perceptions are what we saw earlier is the contemplation. So it includes like contemplating impermanence, contemplating dissatisfaction. Okay, these kinds of contemplations, contemplating death. And these are factors to wisdom, because by contemplating impermanence, by contemplating dissatisfaction, by contemplating the absence of an eternal self, we have what's called wisdom, the ability then to let go of our attachments. Okay, so it's just a really kind of brief overview text. There are, however, so if we go onto this text here, then we start to get into a bit more detail. So this one's called one Dharma. So here, one Dharma is like one practice. Okay. The Buddha again said to the monks, right, you should cultivate mindfulness of exhalation and inhalation. If you cultivate it, you'll attain dhyana, you'll be able to enter into samadhi, and also have these perceptions, these contemplations, which will help us to develop this wisdom, right? And you'll be able to cultivate them to fulfillment. You'll be able to cultivate them to completion, right? So thoroughly, this practice will take you all the way in developing the wisdom that's needed for liberation. And he says, what is meant by, and he just quotes himself. So when I say you should cultivate mindfulness of breathing in and breathing out, and this is going to let you enter into samadhi or dhyana, and this in turn is going to let you develop wisdom and even perfect your wisdom. What do I mean by that? Okay, so he then what we see next is the same as what we saw in that other text, which talks about all 4 grounds of mindfulness. The monk dwelling in dependence on a village or city, so it means dependence just means they live near that village or that city, and that's where they get their alms food from, and they get other things that they need to live their daily lives from the devotees that live there. In the early morning, they put on their robe and they take their begging bowl, they enter into the village to get their alms food. They guard their physical actions and their sense doors. So when they go in, they're not like, "Hey everyone, good to see you, good morning, the monk's here," No, they are not looking around, right? Literally, you lower your gaze. It is the length of a plow yoke in front of you, like you're looking down 45 degrees. This is where I'm walking, this is where I'm going to focus. Every now and then I can glance up and make sure that I'm not going to be attacked by wild street dogs or some bull roaming through the village. Other than that, I'm not looking around. I'm not letting myself be distracted by objects of the senses, right? Because these are just going to agitate the mind and stir up all these other perceptions and all these other emotions. They get their alms food. They return back to their little place in the forest, put away their robe and bowl, wash their feet, have their food. Then they enter into the forest or a quiet hut or beneath a tree or a place in the open air. Okay, so now they've got their location. With a straight body sitting upright, so this is just like a good meditation posture. And kind of note, it's interesting that these early texts don't spend a huge amount of time telling you exactly what is meant by this kind of upright position. They don't, there's these 7 points and your hand must be here and your fingers. No, they don't. Just sit up straight. Okay. They affix mindfulness before them. Now this term here where it says mindfulness before them, the term in the early texts is relative to mukha, which can literally be the mouth. So this is I'm going to talk about this. There's a bit of debate and kind of 2 different views. Literally means the mouth, and so some take it as like, oh, your mindfulness is like around your mouth. They think, well, maybe that means, between your nose and your mouth, your lip, because that's where you focus for your breathing meditation. So that's kind of one take. It's quite literal. Mukha, mouth around here. But others say mukha can also mean almost in a sense your face. It just means you bring your attention here, right? In other words, you don't bring your attention here or there or, oh, what's that in the sky? Or, oh, I'm meditating in the forest. Look at the pretty birds. That's not meditating, right? People often do that, Get out of the city, go into your lovely meditation retreat up in the mountains and just spend all day like looking at the wildlife and taking photos. Oh, look at the pretty pond and the fish. That's not meditating. It's good. You probably need it. Get yourself out of the stinky kind of chaos of day-to-day life, but it's still not really meditating. So they affix mindfulness before them. Let's just say in general it means you're bringing mindfulness right here into the present. You're aware of what's happening right here, right now. The next points we've seen last week: abandoning desire for the world, forsaking desire, aversion, drowsiness, restlessness, and doubt. Now, some of you may recognize that these 5 points are what are known as the 5 hindrances. So in order to cultivate meditation and enter into dhyana, we need to get rid of these 5 hindrances. They literally kind of block meditation. So when you're focused, when we're trying to focus, if you've got desirous thoughts, if you've got aversion or hatred, dullness, sleepiness, restlessness, or doubt, you're like, is this really going to work? Then we can't attain like the focus and concentration that we need, right? So they've forsaken these, you've got to abandon these. They also get rid of doubt and confusion, and their mind attains certainty with respect to wholesome qualities, right? So these wholesome qualities are then the reverse, the absence of these negative states, and also bringing in these qualities of concentration and focus and so forth. Okay, so these are the preliminaries. Those of you that did the course with us, the last course, when we were looking at karma and insight, you may at this point be thinking, hey, this is kind of interesting. You can see the strong parallels, right? Even those 5 qualities we looked at in that earlier text, right? So, pure precept, few desires and excessive activity, food, shelter. 4 of those are the same as 4 of those 5 preliminaries in that Tiantai text on karma and insight. You see that, like, these are the core teachings. I want to emphasize these things, these points that they're making here at the start of this are found everywhere, right? And just core, basic, essential foundations for meditation. Okay, finally, you're like, come on, Matt, let's get to the meditation. Finally, we get then to the meditation part. Mindful of inhalation, they well train in affixing mindfulness. Mindful of exhalation, they well train in affixing mindfulness, whether inhaling and exhaling long or inhaling and exhaling short. Okay, let's just break this down a little bit further, and maybe even I can make some little references to the Chinese here. So we see mindful of inhalation, 念于内息, right? Now, 内 is inside, 息 is breathing. So 内息, breathing in, inhalation. And the next line is 念于外息. 外 means outside breathing. So it's not outside breathing, it means breathing out. 念, that's the Chinese word there for mindfulness. It's the same nian as a nian for to like chant the Buddha's name. And it's worth pointing out in East Asian Buddhism, because of the Pure Land teachings, where most common practice is reciting the Buddha's name. So Āmītōpho, 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 right? This practice is also called nian for. Now, originally this would mean to be mindful of the Buddha, or we could say to even recall the Buddha and the Buddha's qualities. But because it gets used in the sense of chanting, that often in East Asian Buddhism, this character nian gets associated with chanting something. You can say nian jing, which means to recite a sutra. But here it's not. It means to recollect and be mindful of it. I mean, it's still got the commonality of you're focusing on it without being distracted. The second part of these first 2 sentences, 细念善学. So 细, this here means to like tie or to affix something. It's literally like using a piece of string or a piece of silk to tie 2 things together, affix them together, okay? So I'm using this term affixing. You could say affixing or fixing, tying, binding mindfulness. 善学, I'm translating as well train. Okay, this term 学 is to train, to practice. Some people will kind of take a more modern take. 学 nowadays means like study, but it's not. You're not studying mindfulness. That sounds to me like you're reading books about it. I read a very nice, master's thesis on mindfulness. Or that's studying mindfulness. This is not. This is a training or like a practice. And then san. So here the san kind of means to do something well, to do it skillfully. It's not so much like wholesome. I mean, this whole practice is a wholesome kind of practice, but it means to do something properly, right? And fully. So that's the sense it's used in these Buddhist texts. And so mindful of breathing in, fix your mindfulness. Mindful of breathing out, fix that mindfulness. Whether inhaling and exhaling long or inhaling and exhaling short. Now, the Pāli versions are a little bit different. They would actually phrase it of mindful of short inhalation, they take a short inhalation. Mindful of short exhalation, they know I have a short exhalation. And then mindful of long inhalation, they know long inhalation. And mindful of long exhalation, they know long exhalation. But a key point here is we've got two elements. We've got a long breath and a shorter breath. Now, it's kind of interesting. The Chinese here first puts long and then puts short. I think all the Pāli texts first talk about short and then talk about long. Now, a lot of places, they don't really talk about it. Why long, why short? And is there any significance in the order? They just sort of say, well, and this is the usual take that I see in a lot of kind of modern day explanations of this. Is like, the point is, it doesn't matter if your breath is long or short. If it's long, it's long. If it's short, it's short. You just be aware of whatever it's doing and you don't try to influence it. Though personally, I do wonder if it first starts with short and then long in many other texts. He's got a footnote there. What does that footnote say? Yeah, okay. The footnote doesn't give us any indication that elsewhere it's a different order. Anyway, that short is the regular kind of breath. So you first begin just step one. Step one is short. You breathe in. It's just a short, regular kind of a breath. And then a bit later, your breath becomes long. And the reason I feel it could be like that could be the original intention, is that in my experience, not just with myself, but also teaching many other people in meditation classes, is that the longer breath is more conducive to what comes next and to calming the mind and attaining these results. But for now, let's just say one begins, sits down, breathing in and breathing out. When you breathe in, you know you're breathing in. When you breathe out, you know you're breathing out. And there are many different ways of doing this. Okay, there's lots of different teachings on this. So many different teachings. In this text, and this one, and comparing it with the Pāli, the simplest way would be like this. So imagine you're meditating there and you're breathing. As you're breathing in, you're literally kind of saying to yourself, breathing in long breath, or breathing out long breath, right? Breathing in short breath, breathing out short breath. Some translate it as saying, I breathe in a long breath and I breathe out a long breath. I think we can drop the I. Another way to do it, and the way I prefer it in this kind of style, is mindfully breathing in, mindfully breathing out. I drop the sense of I, so I don't want to think of like I'm breathing, because later on we're going to have to deal with this issue of contemplating a self. So not even, maybe would be better to say the body is breathing, but let's just say breathing. Let's just look at it in a very kind of phenomenological type manner. Mindfully breathing in, mindfully breathing out, mindfully breathing in short, mindfully breathing out short, mindfully breathing in long, mindfully breathing out long. So the short and the long, it's not that you're like, okay, now I do a short breath, now I do a long breath. You're not kind of consciously kind of control that or force that. Whatever your breath is doing, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. And so when you begin, that little statement that you're kind of mentally saying to yourself inside, mindfully breathing in. Now, when you get later on and you really want to have this, deep concentration and focus, those little words in your head are going to be a distraction. Yeah. At that point. But when you begin, I think they're not. They're actually very helpful. Because if you don't have it, your mind is, our minds are habitually used to thinking in words and language and concepts all the time. You'll have all these other thoughts come up. But so by using that little statement, using words and concepts, mindfully breathing in short, mindfully breathing out short, it then on one side brings in other concepts that are associated with breathing, and it's going to help you keep your mindfulness. And it's also going to prevent you from thinking about other things like, do I need to go and pay my cell phone bill tomorrow because I'm running out of data? Or whatever, right? So use that concept, mindfully breathing in, mindfully breathing out, mindfully breathing in, mindfully breathing out. Use that concept to help you remind yourself that that's where your conscious awareness needs to be, on the breath. These are the first two steps. The text continues. So these are 1 and 2. So step 1 is, in the other text, short, and then step 2 is long. Step 3 is, aware of the whole body, they inhale. They train well in inhalation with respect to the whole body. Aware of the whole body, they exhale. They well train in that should be exhalation with respect to the whole body. Okay, this translation's a draft. Okay, now just identified a mistake, copy and paste, and didn't change it. So the point here is you're continuing with the breathing, still breathing in and breathing out, but here when we're breathing in and here when we're breathing out, we become aware of the whole body. Right? So again, what does that mean? The whole body. Again, there are two interpretations. The way I've done it is, the way I've translated it, which really just follows the Chinese, is one interpretation. It means as you're breathing, you're aware of the whole body. And you can kind of do that. The breath operates, most of the, basically from kind of like your hips up. There's movement of your chest, the diaphragm moves, the chest expands and contracts, sternum comes up, shoulders move. That will also change the posture in your neck very slightly. All of these are very slight, tiny movements, but there is this whole working of a large part of the body, except for the limbs, really. That's one interpretation, and that's the one I want to use. Another interpretation is it means the breath body. They refer to it as like the breath body. But then it's kind of, what's the breath body? I mean, surely the breath body is just the breath. I don't quite, that interpretation doesn't kind of seem to make much sense to me, particularly in the context of like my own experience of meditation. The further you go, you really start to feel this, the breathing is this kind of process that most of your whole body is doing. So this is point 3. Aware of the whole body breathing in, aware of the body breathing out. And then the fourth point is aware of pacifying all bodily formations they inhale. They well train in inhalation with respect to pacifying all bodily formations. And then aware of pacifying all bodily formations they exhale. They train well in, again, it should be exhalation with respect to pacifying all bodily formations. So we're continuing with breathing, okay? So the breathing through all these steps, we're now up to point 4. Breathing in, breathing out, that stays the same. But here we are pacifying bodily formations. Now this term formation, so what's the bodily formation? Term formation here, samskara, sankhara, it's the same word for like the fourth of the 5 aggregates. My take on it, and not just my take, other takes as well, is that this term here doesn't refer to the 4th aggregate. It refers to these conditioned responses of the body, and that includes like your body, kind of like how you might talk about like mental complexes in the mind, which are these kind of patterned tensions and reactions within the mind. The body has similar ones as well. There are parts of the body which have like tensions, built-in tensions and stresses, and I mean that's a whole field of study, right? The relationship between psychological stress and distress and complexes and issues, and like being embedded within parts of the body. And like an easy example is something like an injury, a physical injury. So for myself, for example, I have on 2 occasions fractured bones in my neck, and while the problem is gone now, largely, but for a long time I had a lot of other tension, other issues in my neck. If you would touch my neck, I would have this very strong kind of protective reaction, and it was kind of this embedded stress in parts of my neck. So when we're then working with the breath here, we're getting this deep relaxation all these complexes and tensions throughout the body, we are releasing them. And they are associated with various forms of psychological and emotional stress and tension as well. So you can work it on it from two ways. You can try to deal with it from the psychological side to reduce the physical issue, or you can try to work with the physical issue to release the psychological side. And you can see this, I'll give some examples of how you can see this relationship. A lot of times when I've been to, say, longer meditation retreats, like 7-day retreats, there's a very high level of physical relaxation. So you're doing a lot of meditation, you're doing a lot of, say, yoga or stretching, and the body gets more and more relaxed. And you'll find at certain points, some people will they'll just be in tears. It's like, wow, what happened? Nothing. What's wrong? It's not that something's wrong. They just feel this relaxation, this cathartic release of a huge amount of these tensions and stresses that have been building up in their bodies. And it comes out in forms of tears because of this release. So the release of those stresses within the body is then matched by this kind of release of this emotional pain on the other side as well. And this can also happen in other forms. So like deep, say, massage can also help to release those kinds of issues and so forth. So we can kind of see the connection between the two. So that's kind of the way I see these different steps. Now there are further steps. I'm just looking at the time today as well, because we do need to do some meditation. This is up to then step 4. Okay, and that's what I'm going to do. Not tomorrow. Next week we are still continuing with the breath, okay? So we're going to do 2 whole weeks on the breath before we then get into feelings, mental states, and dhammas. So we've only got partway through the text here, but don't worry, we've still got more time to do in the future. So let's just go through these. And these sutras here that just deal with mindfulness of the breath, they have 16, I should have mentioned this earlier, they have 16 specific practices with the breath. Right, we've now done 4. Breathing in, short breath. So breathing in, breathing out, short breath. Breathing in, breathing out, long breath. Breathing in, breathing out, aware of the whole body. And then breathing in, breathing out, I'm going to say relaxing the whole body. I'm just going to say it like that, relaxing the whole body. Here they say it as pacifying bodily formations, right? Releasing deep stress and tension within the body. Now, these are the first 4. Like I said, there are still 12 more. Now, 4 sets of 4. And the interesting thing is that, so earlier when I said, we've got 4 grounds of mindfulness, and then mindfulness of the breath is one of those. But it's not just one part of mindfulness of the body. The way it's taught in these sutras is you can actually use mindfulness of the breath to fulfill all 4 grounds of mindfulness. You use mindfulness of the breath to be mindful of the body. You use mindfulness of breath to be mindful of feelings. Mindfulness of the breath to be mindful of mental states. And mindfulness of breath to be mindful of dhammas. Okay, highly structured teachings, these Buddhists, huh? So this first 4, the first 4 that we're looking at now are mindfulness of the breath to be mindful of the body. What we're going to do next week is we're going to continue with the breath through this whole course. Mindfulness of the breath to be mindful of then feelings, mental states, and dhammas. Okay. So in a minute, what are we going to do? We're going to do a few little stretches, and we're going to sit, do some meditation. We are going to, and I'll be guiding you throughout this kind of process, so don't worry, but just refresh again now. So once we've done some stretches and we're sitting down, got our posture, as we breathe in, we're going to think to ourselves, mindfully breathing in. As we breathe out, mindfully breathing out. Mindfully breathing in, mindfully breathing out. And if you like, you can put the long or short on it. I'm going to kind of think, let's just kind of leave it as optional for this point. And I like to put the the long or the short kind of at the end, because once you got to do the breath before you know was it long or short. So mindfully breathing in, short, mindfully breathing out, short, mindfully breathing in, long, mindfully breathing out, long. We're just going to use that little word, a little brief statement inside our heads to remind ourselves to be mindful of, not forget, not be distracted when we're focusing on the breath. Then we're going to move in. We're going to go like halfway through. We're going to say mindfully breathing in. So aware of the whole body. Mindfully breathing out, aware of the whole body. Mindfully breathing in, aware of the whole body. Mindfully breathing out, aware of the whole body. Right? So then you're going to bring that attention throughout this whole kind of breathing body. And finally, mindfully breathing in, and let's just say relaxing the body. Let's just keep it kind of simple. Mindfully breathing out, relaxing the body. We're going to again use that statement to remind ourselves we need to, one, breathe and pay attention, breathing in or breathing out, but also as we're breathing, we're going to relax. And so you might find at that point, well, even when you're just being aware of the whole body, you might find you need to make little adjustments. And the way I teach meditation, that's fine. There are definitely some places that are sort of like, once you're sitting, you can't move. Some Chinese like Chan halls are like that, like absolutely cannot move, cannot put your feet down. There are also some Theravadan teachings that are like that, like, oh, if it's painful, then just use that painful feeling as part of your practice. We'll talk about this next week, but I don't actually think that was what was intended. The mindful of the feeling, it wasn't just any feeling. It was when you start to actually get into dhyana and you start to get this joy and happiness, this light, joyous feeling of the body and mind, you're being aware of that. It's not just, I'm sitting here and my leg hurts so much, let's just be mindful of my pain. No, we're not jainas. We're not doing tapas or ascetic practices here, I'm afraid. Okay, we'll talk about that next week. Okay, so mindfully breathing in short, mindfully breathing out short, mindfully breathing in long, mindfully breathing out long, mindfully breathing in aware of the whole body, mindfully breathing out aware of the whole body, mindfully breathing in relaxing the body, mindfully breathing out relaxing the body. 4 steps are what we're going to focus on today after we do some stretches. Okay, so are you all still with me there? Sorry, I haven't gone back, haven't seen any comments for a while. I'm assuming that's a good sign. Okay, I'm going to switch cameras now to the big, the distant camera. I'm going to have to lower this first one, get that out of the way. Oh, that's kind of still in screen there, but never mind, it's not too bad. Okay, let me get ready, and you can hopefully find a space as well and put the cushion down. Okay, let's do just our usual stretches, shall we? I'm just going to move that camera up a bit, I'm afraid. Okay, just like that. You should still be able to see my feet. Okay, so let's just do our usual run, starting from the feet and the ankles. So right foot, rolling the ball. And remember, when we're doing this, we can be mindful of the body. This is already part of our practice. This is not preliminary to practice. Stretching the other way. So in whichever way they deport themselves, they are mindfully aware. Okay, change the left foot. Right? Moving the ankle, feeling the ground with the ball of the foot, feeling any sensations. Back the other direction. Now we're mindful, we're standing. I'm mindful, I'm talking. Maybe you're mindful of hearing my voice. Okay, let's go then onto the knees. So hands on the knees and stretching down, just opening up the knees and back. We're going to open up the backs of the legs, stretching down and back, and stretching down and back. Okay, and we can do little circles with the knees. And back the other way. to the hips and waist, circles at the hips and waist, very important. Now those of you who are watching this and it's the morning in your time, yeah, you might notice that your body is stiffer in the morning. So it's definitely good to do a few little stretches before you begin, even just in the class session. Then finally, up to the upper body here, the chest, hands in front. Going to inhale, stretching up. I need a place with a higher ceiling. Opening up your chest, breathing in. And then exhaling, stretching down. Inhaling, breathing in. Inhaling, stretching up, sorry. Exhaling, coming down. Inhaling, coming up. Exhaling down. Up. Of course, now we're also mindful of the breath and the body, and then relax. And then just last of all for the head and neck. Okay, stretching up and down. Up and down. Up and down. Center, left and right. And these stretches can also already help to not just become aware of the body as a whole, but also to help relax the body, right? Which is our fourth method of mindfulness of the breath. Okay. Let's flip back over. Let's get ready for our meditation session. I'm going to probably, I don't know if that, how's that angle? That angle's probably good there. I hope so. Okay, looks pretty good. So get comfy, whichever meditation posture you want to use. I'm going for a very basic half lotus. So one foot underneath, the other foot on top. Whichever is comfy for you, okay? Whichever is comfortable for you is the core thing. Where you can breathe properly and fully, and you can relax your body. These are the key points, okay? So just settle in. You might want to stretch a little side to side. I like to just rock backwards and forwards, stretch my lower back in particular. You can lean forward if you like. Stretch up, also help to open your chest. Okay, hope you're comfy. Oop. Okay, if you've got glasses on, watches, of course your cell phone should be off. Put those to the side so you're not distracted or weighed down. I keep these on because I need to watch the time. Okay. Now, first of all, we've gone into the forest. We've gone into the forest or the jungle or our cave. This is my cave here. 5-star cave. We are sitting cross-legged, body upright, so keep your back upright if you can, but also relaxed. And now you're going to bring your mindfulness before you. Now, if you like, you can close your eyes, or if you're afraid you're going to be distracted, just lower your gaze down like on the floor in front of you, so you're not being distracted. Now, if you're doing it at home, it might be good to say, you know, if you look at a wall like this, because if your eyes are looking at you, there's nothing to see. You know, kind of think, oh, I should paint the wall or something. It's non-stimulating, very important. Okay. And once you're ready, we're going to start the session, and I'll just give you some kind of basic reminders of those points as we go. Okay. So mindfully breathing in, mindfully breathing out. Mindfully breathing in, mindfully breathing out. Mindfully breathing in, Mindfully breathing out. Of course, you'll have your own pace, so I'll leave you to that pace. And if you like, you can put mindfully breathing in short, mindfully breathing out short, or if your breath is a little longer, mindfully breathing in long, mindfully breathing out long. So let's just begin with these two basic ones, or you can just stick to mindfully breathing in and mindfully breathing out. We'll do this for a few minutes to begin. Mindfully breathing in, mindfully breathing out. If you're distracted, just bring your mind, your attention back to your breath. Mindfully breathing in long, mindfully breathing out long. Let's now move into mindfully breathing in, aware of the whole body, mindfully breathing out, aware of the whole body. Mindfully breathing in, aware of the whole body. Mindfully breathing out, aware of the whole body. Mindfully breathing in, aware of the whole body. Mindfully breathing out, aware of the whole body. Let's now move to the fourth, which is mindfully breathing in, relaxing the body, and mindfully breathing out, relaxing the body. So just try to maintain your good posture. You can go through and make sure that all those parts of the body are fully relaxed. Of course, in order to do that, we need to maintain our awareness of the whole body as well. So mindfully breathing in, relaxing the body, and mindfully breathing out, relaxing the body. mindfully breathing in, relaxing the body, and mindfully breathing out, relaxing the body. Take a nice deep full breath in. Slowly exhale all the way out. Just start to get back into movement. So gently rock to the left, the right. And as we do these stretches at the end, continue with your mindfulness of the breath, mindfulness of the body. Breathe in, stretch up. Exhale, stretching forward, stretching out the lower back. Turning to the left leg, over the left leg. The right leg. Back to the center. And then back, stretching up. And relax. Warm up the palms of the hands. Let's continue with your mindfulness of the breath. Really is such a portable practice we can take anywhere. Covering over the eyes, massaging around the eyes and eye socket, and up to the forehead, and the top of the eyebrow through the temples, down the cheeks, jawline to the chin, and the ears from top to bottom, down to your earlobes. Give them a good stretch and pull. Okay, warm up your hands again. Back of the head and neck, down the arms, shoulders and arms, chest, and then the lower back. Okay. Now hopefully you should be feeling very nice and calm and peaceful, relaxed. But we can continue that mindfulness, that awareness of the body and the breath. They go so well together. I mean, breathing's physical action, part of the body. Whatever we're doing. And just finally, out to the legs. You can unlock your legs, massage your legs down if you need to, the sides. And remember also that muscle in the front that runs down just on the outside of the shin. If you need to, your ankle, you turn your ankle. other leg. Okay, I'm going to just come forward on my seat a bit now. Just going to readjust the camera there. Hopefully that should be about right. Okay. Last few minutes, so you can, if you've got any questions or queries or any other feedback, please feel free to throw all these here in the comment section. And we can talk about these things in the last few minutes that we've got here. Just while you're thinking and typing, just some reflections on how to go from here. Just a little summary as well. So we started looking at the 4 grounds of mindfulness. We've talked about mindfulness as a kind of preliminary and entrance into dhyana or samadhi, which of course is then also our foundation for generating wisdom, which can free us from our distresses, from dukkha. And mindfulness in these texts, typically we get four grounds or foundations or bases: the body, feelings, mental states, and dhammas. But in particular of the body, the breath, using the breath, is actually, while it's a physical action itself, it can kind of go, we can use it as a vehicle to go through all 4 of these. And so using this, these teachings that then focus on mindfulness of the breath, break it up into 16 individual steps or practices. The first 4 are specifically mindfulness of the breath to accomplish mindfulness of the body. And that's what we did today. Breathing in short, breathing out short. So breathing short, breathing long, breathing aware of the body, and breathing relaxing the body. Okay, these are these 4 basic ones that we were looking at today. Next week we'll be looking to continue that and looking at breathing with respect to these other ones. So breathing then as a vehicle to establish mindfulness of feelings and sensations. And this will be in particular, I don't know about you, it was a fairly short session, I think just a bit over 20 minutes, but when we finish, I feel really good. My body feels really calm, relaxed, inside also feel very calm and peaceful. That is a kind of a feeling, that's a sensation, this pleasant, happy feeling. If we were doing a long retreat, for example, we're doing days and days of just focusing on the breath, you can get into some really, really lovely and pleasant states. Then that can be a foundation then for being mindfulness of these feelings and these sensations as we're purifying the mind in the process. Now, that's going to be next week. We're going to be continuing on with the breath, and then that'll be week 3, and then week 4, 5, and 6 we'll be looking at mindfulness of sensations, specifically the mind and dhammas. But it's also worth pointing out that while we can definitely look at them, these practices were not, purported to be, you're not going to be able to complete it in like 20 minutes. This can be a lifetime meditation practice, and how far and how deep we can go with that kind of remains to be seen. But at least we can kind of cover the theory, and it is important to know kind of these ideas and the theory behind it, so that when we're practicing it, it's our roadmap, right? It's our little roadmap. It's telling us where we're going. The map is not the place, but it can certainly help us when we get to the place to navigate. We have an idea. Okay, I think we need to go this way here. We need to go that way here. We shouldn't go in some other direction. Okay, so hopefully that can be our classes, the theory and the practice to go with it. Okay, now I don't know if anyone's got any comments here. I'm not seeing any comments coming through. I don't know if it's just my browser is lagging or something. I don't think so. Normally there's no problem with these. So maybe today everyone's just feeling all very nice and happy, and all your worries and all your queries have magically dissolved away. I hope it can last for the rest of the day, for the rest of the week. Or maybe you've got just other things on your mind. I don't know. Okay. Time's drawing near. Just back to that last comment there from Mika. I hope that the live stream experience has gone well for you today. It seems to have gone pretty well from my side. Couple of little things to work on. Constantly a work in process. But just also to let you know, okay, we've got a comment coming here from Hanuman. Thank you. I felt more relaxed. Well, that's good. I'm glad you feel more relaxed. And I hope you can kind of maintain that through the day. I don't know what you have planned for the rest of your day, but I hope you can keep that kind of calm and clear state of mind and that kind of relaxed feeling in your body as well, because life is a lot better when we're free from stress. Okay, I was just going to say one last thing. So because now when we're doing these live streams, I'm just using the software, I'm just recording them, like not just on Facebook, but it actually then outputs quite a high quality video file, which I'm then uploading onto YouTube. And so, I mean, these are live here on Facebook, and after the live stream, you can still go back and watch it as well. But I'm putting them up on YouTube as well, just to make them available in more places. And also thinking, and as I was doing that, I was also going through some old class material that I have. These are mainly lectures, university level lectures and classes, quite a lot of detail, that I have in audio. And if anyone out there knows a good way to convert WMA audio files to something like MP4 for video that can be uploaded to Facebook, if you know any good software, preferably free software, please let me know. I had a look around, but I couldn't quite find a perfect solution. So if you have any ideas about that, please just you can private message me, or you can just message it here, because I'd like to start converting some of those other teachings from over the last quite a few years, and also make them available to anyone who may be interested. Okay, I've got a comment here. I guess it's probably from Terry. I'm not too sure. From the Kalyana Meditation Center. Thanks. We enjoyed the session. See you next week. Okay, maybe that's the perfect last note for today's session. Good to see you all. Or hear from you all. I'm glad you've joined us. I hope this has been beneficial for you. And keep on with your practice, and we'll see you back next week. Okay, take care.